The resurrection of evidence, Jason's discovery, Sam's shocking return, and Willow's unexpected acquittal. The soap opera landscape of General Hospital has been rocked by one of its most dramatic and shocking storyline revelations in recent memory. As the trial of Willow Kane for the attempted murder of Congressman Drew Quartermaine reaches its climax, evidence has surfaced that could potentially unravel everything the Port Charles legal system thought it knew about the crime. Jason Morgan's stunning discovery that Samantha McCall is alive has fundamentally altered the trajectory of the case, suggesting that the true shooter may not be Willow Tate at all, but rather the supposedly deceased Sam McCall herself. Simultaneously, the judge's final verdict finding Willow not guilty has sent shockwaves through Port Charles, leaving residents grappling with questions about justice, truth, and the mysterious circumstances surrounding Drew's shooting. Jason's explosive discovery, Sam McCall lives. The revelation that Sam McCall, beloved mother of Danny Morgan and former love of Jason Morgan, is still alive ranks among the most shocking returns in General Hospital history. For weeks, Port Charles mourned the loss of this pivotal character, believing that she had been killed by Cyrus Renault in a tragic act of violence. Evidence unearthed by Jason Morgan during his investigation into Drew's shooting revealed something far more sinister. Sam's death had been staged as part of an elaborate scheme by powerful forces who have been holding her captive in a secret facility hidden beneath Port Charles. The discovery was made almost by accident when Jason was pursuing leads related to Drew's attempted murder and the growing suspicion that something deeper and more organized was at play in Port Charles. What he uncovered was a high-tech facility containing evidence that Sam had not perished, but had instead been subjected to some form of experimental procedure or memory mapping project. According to the evidence Jason discovered, Sam's vital signs were recorded days after her supposed death, indicating that the liver transplant Lulu Spencer received, which everyone believed came from Sam, was actually a bioprinted synthetic organ created to maintain the cover story. This revelation transforms Jason's understanding of not only Sam's fate, but also the interconnected web of crimes and conspiracies that have plagued Port Charles in recent months. The evidence suggested that whoever orchestrated Sam's kidnapping and imprisonment had the resources, technology, and ruthlessness to stage an elaborate funeral and deceive the entire community. For Jason, who has spent years fighting to protect those he loves, the discovery that Sam might still be alive represented both a glimmer of hope and a terrifying acknowledgement of the dangers that continued to threaten the people closest to him. The theory that Sam, not Willow, shot Drew. As the evidence of Sam's survival became known within Port Charles legal circles, investigators and defense attorneys began to consider a startling possibility. Could Sam McCall, the woman everyone believed was dead, actually be the person who shot Drew Quartermaine? This theory, while seemingly far-fetched on its surface, carries significant weight when examined in the context of Sam's protective nature and her deep concerns about the welfare of her children, particularly her daughter Scout, whom Drew had been keeping away from her family. For years, Sam would have done anything to protect her children. The way Drew has been treating Danny Morgan and his handling of Scout would have been deeply upsetting to any mother. If Sam had survived her initial encounter with Cyrus Renault and was somehow brought back into consciousness or control, whether through the experimental procedures hinted at by Jason's discovery or through some other means, her first instinct would likely have been to exact revenge on the man who had been harming her children and preventing her from being with them. The shooting itself was notable for being remarkably inaccurate for a professional hit. The shooter fired twice at Drew, but failed to kill him, suggesting either that the shooter didn't want him dead or simply wasn't skilled enough to finish the job. This inconsistency has long troubled investigators because it doesn't fit the profile of either a contract killer or a calculated murder by someone with military training. However, it would fit the profile of a grieving, vengeful mother who was trying to punish rather than execute her target. If Sam was, in fact, the shooter, it would explain several pieces of the puzzle that have troubled investigators. It would also cast considerable doubt on the evidence against Willow, whose presence near the Quartermaine mansion on the night of the shooting now seems potentially incidental rather than criminal. The theory that Sam shot Drew adds a layer of tragic irony to the situation. A woman brought back through experimental means, disoriented and manipulated, potentially taking action against someone she perceived as a threat to her children, only to have an innocent woman face prosecution for her crime. The judge's verdict: Willow found not guilty. Despite the mounting evidence against her, including traffic camera footage showing Willow in her vehicle at the Quartermaine mansion on the night of the shooting, the judge ultimately delivered a verdict of not guilty for Willow Cain. This shocking decision has left many in Port Charles bewildered, questioning whether justice was truly served or whether the legal system failed to hold the apparent guilty party accountable. The not guilty verdict appears to have been influenced by reasonable doubt introduced into the trial regarding the shooter's true identity, as Jack Brennan, a manipulative operator with powerful connections, worked behind the scenes on behalf of Nina Reeves. He managed to cast sufficient uncertainty on the prosecution's case. Brennan, who had previously promised to help clear Willow's name in exchange for a favor from Nina, apparently delivered on that promise by introducing new evidence or creating reasonable doubt about the circumstances of the shooting. The judgment raises critical questions about the nature of justice in Port Charles. While Willow may not have actually pulled the trigger, she was certainly involved in suspicious activities that night, including her documented presence at the scene and her history of erratic behavior and lies. The absence of definitive proof of her guilt, combined with the emergence of alternative suspects and the clouding of evidence, was apparently sufficient to convince the judge that reasonable doubt existed, thereby requiring an acquittal. For Willow herself, the verdict represents a reprieve from prison and the opportunity to rebuild her life and her relationship with her children. The emotional and psychological toll of the trial and the reality that someone else may have actually committed the crime for which she was almost in prison will undoubtedly haunt her for years to come. The unraveling of Port Charles. The convergence of these three major revelations: Jason's discovery that Sam is alive, the theory that Sam may be Drew's actual shooter, and Willow's acquittal, represents a fundamental unraveling of the narrative that Port Charles authorities and residents have accepted for months. The community that believed it had closure on Sam's death now must grapple with the reality that she may be alive, held captive somewhere, and possibly a victim of the same forces that have been destabilizing Port Charles for months. For Jason Morgan, the knowledge that Sam may still be alive transforms his entire mission and priorities. Instead of focusing on solving Drew's shooting or supporting the legal proceedings against Willow, he must now marshal his resources and intelligence network to locate Sam, rescue her from wherever she is being held, and bring her home to her family. This mission will inevitably bring Jason into conflict with whoever orchestrated Sam's kidnapping and the sophisticated technology that keeps her imprisoned. The question of who holds Sam captive, for what purpose, and how she came to be part of what appears to be an experimental memory mapping project remains unanswered. The hints in the evidence discovered by Jason suggest involvement by powerful organizations with access to advanced technology, possibly the WSB, possibly rogue elements of intelligence agencies, or possibly other criminal organizations that operate at a level beyond the typical Port Charles mob conflicts. Conclusion: justice, truth, and the search for answers. The acquittal of Willow Cain, while legally correct if reasonable doubt truly existed regarding her guilt, leaves numerous questions unanswered about the attempted murder of Drew Quartermaine and the true circumstances surrounding the shooting. The revelation that Sam McCall may still be alive, combined with the emerging theory that she could be the actual shooter, adds layers of complexity to an already convoluted case that touches on issues of personal justice, protective parental instincts, and the manipulation of evidence in the legal system. Jason Morgan's discovery of evidence that Sam survives represents a turning point not just for him personally, but for the entire trajectory of Port Charles. The woman who sacrificed herself to save Lulu Spencer may not have been lost after all, but rather held captive by forces unknown, subjected to procedures unknown, and potentially manipulated into actions that endangered an innocent woman. As Port Charles moves forward, the resolution of Sam's situation and the true identity of Drew's shooter will likely determine whether justice was truly served or whether the system failed in the most fundamental way possible. Next, we will learn about the explosive courtroom drama that's about to shatter Portia Robinson's carefully constructed world into a million irreparable pieces. The perfect alibi that's actually a perfect nightmare. Portia Robinson finds herself trapped in what can only be described as a legal and personal nightmare of epic proportions. She possesses something that most people under investigation would desperately want: an absolutely bulletproof, ironclad alibi for the night of September 2nd, 2025, when someone ambushed Drew Cain and left him bleeding with 2 gunshot wounds in his back. The problem isn't that her alibi won't hold up in court. The problem is that it holds up too well, because the person who can verify her whereabouts that fateful night isn't her devoted husband Curtis Ashford. It's Dr. Isaiah Gannon, a man who has become far more than just a colleague or friend in recent months. The cruel twist of fate here is that Portia's salvation in the courtroom will become her destruction at home. Every lawyer knows that an alibi is only as good as the witness who can corroborate it. And Isaiah Gannon can absolutely confirm that Portia was nowhere near the scene of Drew's shooting. He can testify with complete certainty because she was with him, not at a hospital staff meeting, not grabbing coffee at a neutral location. She was intimately involved with him while her husband sat at home, probably wondering when his wife would finally come through that door. The courtroom confrontation that changes everything. When Alexis Davis calls Portia Robinson to take the witness stand during Willow Tate's murder trial, the temperature in that courtroom is going to drop to absolute zero. Alexis is a brilliant attorney who knows exactly what questions to ask, and she's going to methodically corner Portia with the precision of a surgeon wielding a scalpel. The questions will seem innocent at first. Where were you on the evening of September 2nd? Can anyone verify your location? Who were you with? Each question will tighten the noose around Portia's neck just a little bit more. Portia will have mere seconds to make a decision that will alter the trajectory of her entire life. Option 1. Commit perjury by lying under oath about her whereabouts. This would technically save her marriage in the short term, but it's also a federal crime that could land her in prison, cost her medical license, and destroy everything she's worked her entire career to build. The prosecution would eventually uncover the truth anyway. They always do. And then she'd be facing criminal charges on top of the adultery revelation. Option 2. Tell the complete, unvarnished truth and watch Curtis Ashford's heartbreak in real time as he sits in that courtroom gallery. She would have to speak the words out loud, on the record, with court reporters transcribing every syllable. I was with Dr. Isaiah Gannon. Those 6 words will echo through the courthouse, through Port Charles, and through the rest of her life. Curtis will hear them. Trina will hear them. Everyone they know will eventually hear them because courtroom testimony becomes public record. Curtis Ashford's devastating betrayal. The absolute heartbreak of this entire situation centers around Curtis Ashford, a genuinely good man who has been nothing but supportive and loving throughout Portia's pregnancy. This isn't a man who has been distant or neglectful. This isn't a husband who drove his wife away through cruelty or indifference. Curtis has been preparing their home for the baby's arrival. He's been painting the nursery, assembling cribs, reading parenting books, attending doctor's appointments whenever Portia would allow him to come along. Curtis believed they were rebuilding their marriage after some rocky patches. He thought they were moving toward a stronger, more unified future as parents together. He's been making plans for their growing family, discussing baby names, imagining what their child will look like. Every single one of those moments was built on a foundation of lies and deception. When Portia left the hospital recently, Curtis probably assumed she was coming home to rest and recover. Instead, she drove straight to Isaiah's secluded cabin in the woods, seeking comfort and connection with the man who might actually be the biological father of the child Curtis believes is his. That cabin visit wasn't a brief stop or an innocent check-in with a colleague. Portia stayed. She chose Isaiah's arms over Curtis's concern. She chose secrecy over honesty. And now Curtis is going to find out about all of it in the most public, humiliating way possible. During a televised murder trial with cameras rolling and reporters taking notes. Isaiah Gannon's unexpected declaration. Dr. Isaiah Gannon isn't playing the role of guilty secret lover who wants to fade into the background. He's not suggesting that Portia keep quiet and pretend nothing happened between them. Isaiah has made his intentions crystal clear to Portia in private conversations that would absolutely devastate Curtis if he knew about them. Isaiah told Portia directly that he wants to be this baby's father, not in some metaphorical, supportive uncle kind of way. He means he wants to be the father, raising this child, making decisions, being present for every milestone. Isaiah isn't backing down or suggesting they keep things casual until the paternity is determined. He's offering Portia something that terrifies and tempts her in equal measure, a complete escape route. He's essentially told her she doesn't have to go back to Curtis at all. She could start fresh with him. They could raise this baby together, away from all the judgment and complications of her current life. He's prepared to step up publicly, claim this child, and give Portia the sanctuary she desperately needs right now. This isn't the behavior of a man who sees their relationship as a meaningless fling or a mistake to be covered up. Isaiah is emotionally invested at a deep level. He's already bonding with the idea of this baby. He's making plans in his head. That kind of emotional commitment from a potential biological father adds exponentially more complications to an already impossibly complex situation. The devastating pattern repeats itself. The most bitter irony of Portia's current predicament is that she's essentially recreating her own history with surgical precision. Anyone who has followed General Hospital for the past few years knows about the Trina paternity scandal that nearly destroyed the Robinson family. For years, Portia kept the secret that Marcus Taggart wasn't Trina's biological father. She let Taggart believe he had a daughter. She let Curtis remain in the dark about potentially having a child. The secret festered and grew until it finally exploded, causing massive damage to every relationship involved. When that truth finally emerged, Portia had to watch the hurt and betrayal in Curtis's eyes. She had to see Trina's confusion and pain. She had to face the consequences of years of deception. Everyone in her life told her that keeping that secret was wrong. They told her the truth always comes out eventually and that the longer you wait, the worse the damage becomes. Portia supposedly learned that lesson. She claimed to understand the importance of honesty, especially about paternity. And yet here we are again. Different father, different baby, exact same pattern of deception. Portia is once again hiding the truth about who might have fathered her child. She's once again letting Curtis believe he's the father when there's a significant possibility he's not. She's once again building a life on a foundation of lies that will inevitably collapse. The worst part? This time she knew better. She had already lived through this nightmare once before. She knew exactly how much pain these secrets cause. And she chose to create the same situation all over again anyway. Trina Robinson figures it out. Trina Robinson inherited her mother's intelligence and her father's investigative instincts. She's not going to miss the obvious timeline here. Trina already knows about her mother's pregnancy. That's not a secret anymore. The moment Portia takes the witness stand and admits under oath that she was with Isaiah Gannon on September 2nd, Trina's mind is going to start making connections at lightning speed. Trina will remember seeing her mother with Isaiah at various times. She'll recall conversations that seemed innocent at the time, but now take on new meaning. She'll remember her mother's strange behavior, the secretive phone calls, the times Portia claimed to be working late at the hospital. And most importantly, Trina will do the pregnancy math. If her mother was having an affair with Isaiah around September, and she's currently pregnant, then Curtis might not be the father. Trina will realize her mother is potentially repeating the exact same pattern that caused so much pain with her own paternity. The betrayal Trina will feel goes beyond just disappointment in her mother's choices. Trina defended Portia during the last paternity scandal. She stood by her mother even when it was difficult. She forgave the lies about her own biological father. And now she has to watch her mother make the exact same mistakes with a new baby, potentially hurting Curtis all over again. Trina's relationship with her mother may never recover from this revelation. Brad Cooper's dangerous knowledge. Brad Cooper represents an entirely different type of threat to Portia's carefully maintained facade. Brad isn't just some random hospital employee with a grudge. He's a man who has spent years surviving in Port Charles by knowing everyone's secrets and using that information strategically. Brad has already demonstrated that he knows Portia tampered with Heather Weber's medical test results, information that could end her medical career permanently if it became public knowledge. When Brad showed up at Portia's hospital room with that characteristic smug expression, dropping hints about having stories to tell, he was essentially announcing that he knows about her affair with Isaiah. Brad thrives on chaos and leverage. He's currently in a vulnerable position himself, which makes him even more dangerous because desperate people make reckless choices. Brad has absolutely nothing to lose by exposing Portia's secrets and everything to gain. He could use this information to protect himself, to negotiate better terms for his own situation, or simply because creating drama gives him a sense of power and control. Portia warned Isaiah that Brad is dangerous, and she's absolutely correct in that assessment. But here's the cruel twist. Brad's potential exposure of her secrets has become almost irrelevant. The courtroom is going to force Portia to expose everything herself long before Brad gets the opportunity to weaponize the information. In some ways, that makes the situation even worse because Portia can't even blame Brad for destroying her life. She's going to have to destroy it herself by telling the truth under oath. The inevitable explosion. The question at this point isn't whether the truth will come out. That ship has sailed. The truth is coming out in the most public, permanent way possible. In a courtroom, under oath, on the record. The only remaining questions are, who survives the fallout? And can any of these relationships be salvaged after such devastating betrayals? Curtis will have to decide whether he can forgive Portia for this level of deception and whether he can raise a child that might not be biologically his. Trina will have to process watching her mother repeat the same destructive patterns. Isaiah will have to navigate the aftermath of their affair becoming public knowledge. And Portia will have to face the consequences of every choice she's made over these past months. Port Charles is about to witness one of the most explosive courtroom revelations in General Hospital history, and the shockwaves will ripple through every corner of this community for months to come.